Hey there. At the end of the last video, I promised to talk just a little bit about the program that went on at Charter Mental Health Services in Grapevine, Texas. They actually had a program that was specifically for Jehovah's Witnesses, and they had a Sunday night free meeting for Jehovah's Witnesses to come to, and it was led by a psychotherapist. I'm sure he was a psychiatrist, psychologist, one of those. I don't know. I tried to look him up and I couldn't find him on the internet, but his name was Anthony Piccioni. And if you guys if you were part of that, you know what I'm talking about. So there was also a fella who was an elder, and oh man, I'm really trying hard to remember his name. Maybe I'll be able to put it in here later. But he was an elder, and he served on staff at that hospital. And they had this program where Jehovah's Witnesses were free to come in, and they knew the lingo. They knew about the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. They knew about being pioneers. They knew about being elders and being elders' wives and all of those things. They knew exactly how to let you come in and feel sort of understood. And Jehovah's Witnesses are frequently depressed. So a lot of the pioneers and the elders' wives are always sick with mystery things like fibromyalgia, and they all have a certain level of depression, and medication was, at that time, it was yes, you should absolutely get medicated. So people were doing that. And now what I understand is that's a thing at Bethel. Everyone is on some sort of medication, prescription medication, and /alcohol. So that's how they cope with living that lifestyle. But this was a thing on Sunday evening. It was kind of like one of those multi-level marketing things where you come in and you go, yes, that sounds exactly like what I have, and then you sign up for their program. And so my husband was frequently in bouts of depression and of issues, having both of his parents been diagnosed as bipolar, and having different issues of their families of origins with alcoholism and abuse. His father had terrible stories of when he was a bigger child, he was 7 or 8 years old, and his story was being strapped down and being circumcised after school one day. That's not traumatic at all. And just some terrible things like that definitely have an effect on your role as a parent and how your kids are going to turn out. So he was often trying to get help, but he couldn't ever afford it because he never had insurance. But I had insurance, so they said, that's okay, we'll bring you in, Brenda, and we'll treat the family. Well, as I mentioned, I had a new baby. I had a little tiny baby, and he was breastfeeding. And I said, how are we going to be able to do that? Because I can't be separated from my baby. And so they made arrangements where people could bring him to me, 3 or 4 times during the day, and then I would pump at night and send home breast milk. So this became an ordeal. And Grapevine to Haltom City, where we lived, was a good 25-minute drive. So it took an awful lot of effort, and I have to hand it to the people in the congregation that they did work that out. So I do have a lot of appreciation for that, but all of that, I believe, could have been prevented, and I could have not been separated from my baby if that had the real issue had been identified. So during the time that I was in and receiving treatment, and he would come in a couple of times a week for the family sessions, what I didn't know is it was being told by him that Brenda is the one with these problems, and so there was definite alienation going on. And when he would come into the family counseling sessions, I would try to speak, his voice would overshadow mine, and he would start talking about, oh, Brenda has this problem and this problem and this problem, and her parents, and and while all of that could have a level of truth in it, because we all know what it's like growing up, or many of us know what it's like growing up under that kind of in that household, that Jehovah's Witness perfectionism household. None of the issues of which we had wanted him to get help were being addressed, because he would kind of overspeak me, and that seemed like it was kind of a common thing that happened throughout the rest of our marriage. And so I began to lose my voice, and to just get quiet and just let him tell the story. And I know that it was observed by the mental health people. They saw that and they heard that. But they knew that they had a limited time to use my insurance, and so that wasn't ever anything that got handled on the congregation level. Things were, handled with me on how to cope through this. But of course, the response of people who were not Jehovah's Witnesses when they would see that kind of interaction between us was, this is not a healthy relationship. You have a baby with this person. This baby is going to be affected by this. But then I was being told by any of the elders or like my family is, Jehovah hates a divorcing. And so it's always that you put the Jehovah thing over any of the other advice that you're being given by the true professionals who know what they're talking about. So I experienced alienation not only from my child, not being able to be with him during those formative weeks and months of his life. And it was only 6 weeks. But only 6 weeks, are you kidding? When you have a brand new baby, not being able to be with your baby, it was terrible. And he was cared for a lot by my mother, the angel woman who loved, loved, loved my children. And so I was alienated from members of the congregation, because the stories that were told was that Brenda's in the facility, and all of that was true. And I was being gaslighted to the point where, when it was told, you are mentally ill, it was like, yes, I am the one who is mentally ill. And I kind of lost a lot of myself through that experience. That is when I began to realize that I had lost time in the 2nd grade, and so a lot of investigation was, was pointed toward the fact that there could have been abuse. And I began to have memories of abuse that had happened, that I had always had those memories, but I thought they were something like a dream. And so I don't really want to go into that a whole lot right here, but I will say that that is a thing that nobody wants you to talk about when you're a Jehovah's Witness, is that there could have possibly been someone who had sinister plans and carried them out. And when I brought it up to my mother said, if there were not 2 witnesses, it did not happen. And so I just put that in my head, that it didn't happen, it didn't happen, it didn't happen, and we'll leave this in Jehovah's hands. That's horrific. And so it's not a club that you want to be a part of, but you don't get a choice. And you certainly don't get the help that you need through the Jehovah's Witnesses. So I spent a lot of time feeling like I was catch-up parenting with my son, and I feel for a lot of years that was something that was held over me, that I was not the mother that I should have been because I didn't have that time with my son. So again, it's just another part of the story that is so awful, and I know a lot of you are identifying with some of the things that I'm saying, and I want to encourage you to tell your story too. Somebody said this week, maybe I ought to, make a YouTube channel. Yes, you should. Yes, you should. It's so comforting. It was comforting to me to hear someone tell their secret things that they were never supposed to tell, and it gave me the braves so that I could start to tell mine. So please tell your story. If I can hold your hand and help you to, find the courage of finding when the time is right to do that, I would gladly do that with you and for you. That is why I am Mildred Willow, Life Doula, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. What is a life doula? Because some of you said, what is a doula? What is a life doula? What is a birth doula? And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time explaining that here on the very next video. But thanks for listening to my story about being part of the Jehovah's Witness experience in a big, giant mental health facility in Grapevine, Texas in the 1990s. Anyway, thanks a bunch. Please subscribe and like the channel. Send me your comments. I love being able to catch up on them. Friday is my day to do that because I'm a working single mom. So thanks for being patient throughout the week, but I am going to now catch up with talking with some of you, and I would love to hear from you. You can reach me at mildredwillow@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.